it's Caitlin, and I made my first Pocket Pop, so I'm not going to show you guys a too close a look because you're going to see the whole video in a minute. But yeah, I didn't film the intro before I did this, so this is the next member of the zoo crew. This is Little Cheese, I believe is his name. And basically he is a mouse with the same powers as like Ant-Man or the Atom. He can grow and shrink, so it was a perfect opportunity for me to make a Pocket Pop. So I will say though, to my surprise, this thing stands. I honestly did not expect it. Most Pocket Pops really don't stand anyway, but I guess most of the time it's probably the keychain holding them down, now that I'm thinking about it. Stupid me not to think of it before. But yeah, I was very, very happy that this thing stayed up, especially because I used a Mickey head, and that thing is kind of heavy, especially that there's some epoxy sculpt on top of it, so I'm actually very, very proud that this thing stands. But this one, despite its size, was not that easy to don't think that the smaller the thing, it's easier to do. If anything, it's a little bit more difficult. I'm not that happy with his crest, which is, for some reason, it appears to be like a slice of Swiss cheese that's glowing. I don't know why, but I don't know why it's glowing. But for the most part, it was good, but there were some challenges. I will show you guys. I'm gonna skip the whole putting the thing in hot water to take off the head. I will show you a still picture though. So the mechanism inside Pocket Pop apparently is a T. Instead of just a peg, it's like a T shape, which explains, I've always wondered why Pocket Pops had a seam on the side of their heads. And I guess this makes sense. I never really thought about it. But if it had a normal peg, it would probably be a lot harder to put in there. Usually, you would soften up the vinyl head, keep the plastic hard, and put it through. That's what I assume they do when they make Pops when they're attaching the heads to the body. But for Pocket Pops, because they're so small, if you heat it up, it could risk distorting it. I didn't do that with mine, thankfully. But apparently it's a T-shape, and they just sandwich it between the two sides of the head, which is honestly kind of cool. So Mickey's ripped during this, so the peg is actually still inside the head. But Hulk's came out clean, so it was pretty fascinating, honestly. But I did have to end up gluing the body to the head, so again, no articulation on this one. And does it look exact? No, but I would have to sculpt a mouse head for it to be perfectly exact. And I'm definitely not going to do that on a miniature scale. Might do it on a larger scale, but not on a miniature one. But yeah, I am actually very happy with how this came out, and yeah, hopefully I am keeping to the time schedule of doing this about 3 or 4 weeks, since y'all have seen the last one. If not, I apologize. But the next one, I already have a pop that I could use for the next member of the zoo crew, and we might go ahead and do a third member. I want to go ahead though and try to do one that you guys suggested on my last live stream. I got a lot of suggestions from you guys on pops I could make and even potentially sell. So that one might be next. It might be like more of a surprise character, but for now we are continuing the zoo crew. Hopefully it'll last probably the rest of the year, hopefully. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the makeover of Little Cheese here. Okay guys, so before I even get started, I know there's probably a buzzing in the background, and if not, there might be some point in this video. I'm trying to figure out a way to work around it. Every time I do, it's either it doesn't work at all, or the buzzing is still there. Right now the fan on my computer isn't going, but the dehumidifier in this room is. I honestly don't know. Hopefully it'll be tolerable at least, and maybe when the world goes back to at least a semi-normal, I can invest in some microphone equipment if it's still not good. There's the fan, so there it is. But anyway, hopefully you guys can deal with it, and I do apologize for it, but I'm trying to figure out a way. But anyway, so Little Cheese has a more of a skin tight outfit like Superman, so I didn't want the little bulges, that's the rips of the Hulk's pants, so I did try to carve those away a little bit as I could. Now this figure, I did it while it was already cooled down. If you do it while it's still warm from the water, it's easier. But also this is where I realized I really needed to change out my knife because it was getting too dull. But yeah, I did try to whittle that down and then sand it a little bit down, just to make it a little bit smoother. So if you guys remember from the last one, the Captain Carrot one, I had to go in and put a little bit of epoxy sculpt onto its fists and the feet of that Pop, in order to sculpt it enough to make it look like a rabbit's foot. And I'm having to do the exact same thing here. I figure this is going to be a running theme with the zoo crew. Not as easy as it is. The smaller something is that you're trying to add epoxy to, the harder it is, honestly. A lot of times water will be your best bet. The only bad thing about that is I didn't really see that with this one. This one was actually easier, but I'm actually working on a Pop right now that was really, really small, and I put so much water onto the epoxy, it actually more turned into mush. Anything, like, it was still usable, but it almost added to the difficulty instead of making it better. So that is something I've learned to watch out for since this. But yes, I'm trying to make it smooth on the bottom as much as possible, and then just put those little indentions in with my silicone tools for the toes and fingers. After that, I move on to the hair, and yeah, this still isn't the best hair it's the best hair I've ever sculpted. It's still not great hair, but it's not that bad. So he has this little just tuft of, orange red hair that comes out of his mask. Kind of like Kid Flash, the Kid Flash Pop that just came out. But anyway, I'm building up the hair in the back, and then I add on some little tufts of hair that come up on the top to give it a little bit more dimension. One of them didn't come out very well. It's almost completely smoothed down. But the other one is good. I did consider filling in the face of Mickey, the little outline around his eyes. But I'm like, nah, it'll just look lumpy in the end, and honestly, I think it's something that can be looked around. Obviously you can see it, but I don't think it's that distracting. So there's that little tuft, and I'm trying to I will be smoothing everything in together. I'm smoothing it down the back so it blends in more, and everything. So yeah, this epoxy stuff, it's a 2-part chemical, pretty much, binding agent or sculpting agent, and it adheres to whatever you're working on as it dries, as it cures. And the curing process takes about 24 hours. It can be worked with within a 3-hour period or so. It's still malleable. It won't be as flexible after the first hour, but you can still technically use it. But you do need to use gloves because it is a skin irritant and all that. So there you go, safety recommendation. You can tell how long ago I did this because it was back when I had my nails done. I haven't had that done in a little bit, but anyway, after that, epoxy is at least semi-hardened. It doesn't have to be fully hardened by the time you get to this process, unless you need to sand it down, which I didn't in this case. I smoothed it down enough. I start going in with the paint. So Little Cheese is mainly a dark red outfit. So this is a bit of a maroon color. It's one that I don't get to use very often, so I was actually kind of happy. Now Mickey's head is black and white. I could have used a base coat of white. The acetone wouldn't have worked, but I could have used a base tone of white to make it better on the black. But usually what I find with the paint I use the really crappy acrylic paint, to be honest, and I don't thin it out like I'm supposed to, like a true artist would, because I don't have the patience for it. But What I found though is, yes, it does leave paint strokes, but it also leaves texture behind. So when you get that second coat on, it's going to be a lot more vibrant than the first coat was. To the point where you probably won't even you might need a third coat, maybe not. It just depends on the paint you're using, like the specific texture of that one paint, because all paint can have the different texture. And I am leaving the bottom half of Mickey white for now because it's going to be painted over with another color. But yeah, I would say all in all this took about 3 coats. So if you can see right down there, I got something on my nail. That's not part of the video, but if you can see there, I also have the body painted in the red color as well. Now if you do have to send the epoxy down, you will need to wear an air mask. People tell you to wear an air mask just for the making the epoxy, like mixing the epoxy, but it doesn't say that on the safety information on the package. I'm pretty sure people are just worried because they think it's like resin, when it's not. There's no fumes that comes from this stuff. But if you are sanding or shaving or anything like that, please do wear a mask, because you do not want to inhale this stuff. You know, it's particles, it's clay particles. You don't want to inhale it, especially if you're going to be working with this stuff a lot of the time, like I do. It'll just end up with, you know, some lung damage down the road possibly, so not a good idea. But I do go ahead anyway. After that subject, I go ahead and paint a couple layers of orange for the hair on Little Mouse. That he even looks like Kid Flash with the red hair and everything. With my small angled brush, I found myself using that thing a lot during this process. And oh, by the way, I forgot to say that I did, before I started painting or anything, I glued Mickey's tail on. I cut it off the Mickey body and glued it on the Hulk's body. And you do want to do that before you start painting, otherwise, instead of gluing the plastic to the plastic, you're gluing the plastic to the paint. And it's more likely to break that way if you accidentally drop it or something. But anyway, with that small thing, and I know my hand's in the way through most of this, I go ahead and paint the gloves. I did leave the end of the limbs on this thing blank without the red paint, just so it would go on a little bit easier. And I do think I went ahead and painted the stripe down the body here as well, to go ahead and get that design element in. Now the painting on here wasn't all that bad. I was actually thinking I was going to have more trouble with this because it was so small. And in some cases I did. You'll see later with the chest that I did. But for the most part it was actually very easy. The only thing is I was squirting so much paint into the palettes that I was wasting a bit more than usual with these, but hey, that's what I do. And like I said before, Little Cheese has more of a natural kind of skin tone, so I did go ahead and do the bottom half of Mickey's head with that sun-kissed peach or something, I think color is what it's called. Now that did take a few coats actually. I think it was mainly just because I wanted it to blend better than it did. I honestly needed to sculpt it a little bit more. The head, if you look at the character, which I put it on the thumbnail, the nose looks a little bit different, the cheeks are a little bit more chubby. It would have looked more accurate if I had sculpted it on. But honestly, I didn't want to. Trust me, on the next pop, I make up for the sculpting. I sculpted the heck out of that thing, but this one I was a little bit more lazy on, so sorry. So apparently I waited to draw that little white thing, little white stripe, but anyway, I skipped ahead and got my nail art tool, my nail art brush out, one of them, and painted very thin lines. Again, my hand's in the way and it's annoying, around the cuffs of the gloves and the boots. You guys can't really see it here because it's white on pale yellow, but I promise it's there. And that's the way the people designed it back then. What year is the Zoo Crew even on? I don't even know what year they're from. But that's the thing that they chose, so I was going with it. There's that little white patch on the body that's just suddenly appeared. But for the eyes, I did try white eyes on there at first. just to see what it would look like, because I always wondered what Flash would look like with the white eyes instead of the black on the pop. Because when you see him in like the cartoons and you know the comics and stuff, he has white eyes. If there's not a pupil there, it's a white eye, like Batman. But I was just seeing if it would work, and it didn't. But anyway, because his color palette was kind of close to the Flash, so I was just wondering. But anyway, I did end up going with black, and I just traced around the nose and painted it back to black as well. Last, for the head, I have to do the ears. Mickey is a black colored mouse, Little Cheese is a brown colored mouse, so it's gotta go to a light brown color. Now, on the front of the ears, he also has an inner ear that's pink, and I did add that off camera at the very end, right before I put the clear coat on. So you guys won't be seeing me do that, but I just made a little ring around the front of the ear for the very pale light pink. But yeah, this did take a few coats. Again, I really need to start going back to doing white coat. I just get more anxious into just jumping in and start doing it. That I don't like doing the acetone stuff, and I don't like doing the base coat stuff. It's the boring part. I want to get to the fun part where I'm sculpting stuff and painting stuff, but I'm lazy. That's basically what I'm saying. I'm lazy and I'm anxious, so I didn't want to do the boring stuff. So yeah, it took a few coats, especially since this paint's very, very thin. So it took several coats to get it as unstreaky as possible. So the insignia that Little Cheese sports on his chest is a piece of Swiss cheese that is glowing for some reason. I did see like pictures of him using his powers, and he does have a glow that comes over him, so I'm guessing that's why the glow is there, but I don't know. But basically how I made it, I took my Posca markers, which I used in the last custom. If you guys want to go check and see what those look like, they're just Posca paint pens. They're some of the best paint pens you can buy. They're expensive, but they're worth it. And I just made like a little blur, pretty much. I'll put the yellow to make the glow. Made a black triangle over that, and now I'm going in with some yellow paint. And you saw before, I kind of wiped some on my finger. Even with these itty bitty little nail brushes, they were still too small for that, and it was just really hard to get right. Oh, by the way, I also painted the tail brown too, if you guys can't see it right here yet, but it is brown. But and then I went in with, I think, an edge of a toothpick with some very like a yellowish green color to make like the little holes for Swiss cheese, or make it look like them anyway. But yeah, that one was honestly the hardest part. I'm not too satisfied, honestly, with it. Like, I'm satisfied for what it is, pretty much. But I know if this was a normal size pop, I could have made that insignia look a lot better. And am I doing that yellow thing? Or not the yellow, but okay. No, it's another. I was like, did I lie about doing that pink part off camera? But no. But anyway, yeah, I wasn't that happy with it. Just because, again, I know I could do better if it was on a normal size pop, but with it being a pocket pop and with the scale I had to work with, it's okay. Still not the best. I don't think people would quite know what it was if they looked at it. That's the big thing. People wouldn't know what it was, but then again, people don't know who Little Cheese is either, so it evens out, I guess. All in all, I'm happy with how this thing turned out. It was my first pocket pop again, and honestly, for the scale it is, I think it looks pretty darn good. You know, it's definitely not, it's not factory quality by any means. Like, Funko could do a better job if they wanted to. But I'm happy with it. I really am. So, there completes the second member of the zoo crew. You can see him here next to, Captain Carrot. Now, the next pop that I do here is not going to be part of the zoo crew, and it is not a DC comic character, surprisingly. So, it is actually, I guess you could say an anime character. I'm not going to say anything more. Some people will know. If you guys watch Tylock's live stream. I kind of put it into his chat in one of his live streams not too long ago. So if you guys were there for that, then you know. But other than that, you don't. And you'll have to wait and see. By the time I'm recording this video, I actually just put the first coat of sealant on there. So hopefully I can do it fairly quickly. The only reason it took me this long to get little cheese out is because I was trying to work around the buzzing instant. Hopefully it wasn't that bad. I won't see it. I won't know until I'm hearing it in, you know, when I put the final edit together, but hopefully it was decent enough for you guys. But anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you guys think of this custom, and remember, like always, guys, it's a community, not a competition, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.